Captain Marcus Chen had survived first contact with 17 alien species, negotiated trade deals across 4-star systems, and once talked his way out of an interstellar incident involving fermented Glorbian fruit. Nothing in his diplomatic training had prepared him for this. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Marcus asked, certain the universal translator had malfunctioned. Ambassador Kiraj of the Valoran Empire stood before him, her crystalline skin shimmering with what his datapad unhelpfully labeled as extreme agitation. Her forearms were crossed in an elaborate pattern that supposedly indicated formal declaration. "You touched me," she said, each word precisely enunciated, without requesting proper bonding permission. "According to Valoran Law subsection 47, Article 12, Paragraph 9, you are now legally obligated to become my spouse." Marcus's mind raced back through the last 10 minutes. The welcoming ceremony had been going smoothly. He'd bowed at the correct angle, used the appropriate honorifics, and carefully avoided the 7 major taboos his briefing package had outlined. Then, as they'd walked toward the conference hall, she'd stumbled on the unfamiliar Earth gravity flooring. He'd reached out instinctively to steady her. His hand had touched her elbow for maybe 2 seconds. "Ambassador, surely there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said, switching to his most diplomatic tone. "In human culture, that was merely a gesture of assistance, not..." "Intent is irrelevant." Kiraj's voice rose, and the crystalline formations on her head flared bright purple. "Physical contact without prior bonding negotiation constitutes automatic marital contract initiation. It's been our most sacred law for 3,000 years. Behind Marcus, his aide Jenny Park made a strangled sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. He shot her a warning glare. "Perhaps we could discuss alternative interpretations," Marcus suggested. "Cultural exchange provisions, diplomatic immunity clauses." "There are no alternatives," Kiraj said, though her color shifted to a slightly calmer violet. "Unless," she paused dramatically, "unless you can prove you are already bonded to another." "I'm not married," Marcus admitted. "Then the law is clear. We must proceed with the ceremonial bonding rituals immediately. The first ceremony alone requires 47 days of continuous meditation in the sulfur springs of my homeworld." Marcus felt sweat forming on his forehead. "Ambassador, I mean no disrespect to your culture, but I can't simply abandon my duties for..." "You should have considered that before you touched me." Kiraj's arms unfolded, gesturing wildly. "Do you know what this means for me? I am a senior diplomatic representative. I had carefully planned to remain unbonded until my career goals were achieved. Now I'm accidentally betrothed to a human who doesn't even have proper crystalline formations." Marcus blinked. "Wait, you don't want this either?" Kiraj's color shifted to an embarrassed pink. "Of course not. No offense to your species, but you're soft and you only have 2 arms. And you can't even photosynthesize." "What would my family say?" For the first time since this conversation started, Marcus felt hope stirring. "So we both want to avoid this marriage?" "Desperately," Kiraj confirmed. "Then perhaps," Marcus said slowly, "we could work together to find a legal solution." Kiraj's color flickered between several shades as she processed this. "You would help me circumvent my own culture's most sacred bonding law. I prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving through cross-cultural collaboration," Marcus replied. Jenny cleared her throat. "Actually, I might have something." She pulled up a holographic display from her datapad. "According to the Valoran legal code you transmitted, the law specifically states intentional physical contact without permission. Could we argue that contact made while preventing injury doesn't qualify as intentional in the bonding context?" Kiraj leaned forward, her color shifting to interested yellow. "The precedent of Karash versus the Judicial Assembly, from 847 cycles ago, a contact made in preservation of life was ruled as separate from bonding contact. I wasn't exactly saving your life," Marcus pointed out. "But you were preventing potential injury," Kiraj countered, now fully engaged. "If I had fallen, I could have fractured my crystalline matrix. That's a valid medical concern." They spent the next hour diving deep into Valoran legal history, discovering precedents, exceptions, and one particularly entertaining case where someone had tried to claim bonding through an accidental sneeze that sprayed bioparticles on a dignitary. Finally, Kiraj straightened, her color now a triumphant gold. "We have sufficient legal ground to petition for a non-bonding ruling based on preservation instinct exception." "Excellent," Marcus said. relief flooding through him. However, Kiraj continued, it will require testimony before the High Council on my homeworld. That's minimum 2 weeks of proceedings. Marcus groaned, but Jenny was already pulling up his schedule. You've got that gap before the consortium summit. It could work. I suppose it beats 47 days in Sulphur Springs, Marcus admitted. Kiraj's color rippled with what might have been amusement. Captain Chen, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful diplomatic friendship, one with very clear boundaries about physical contact. Marcus extended his hand for a handshake, then quickly withdrew it. Right. No touching. Humanity, Kiraj said, her tone now warm. Always so quick to help, so slow to consider the consequences. It's simultaneously your most endearing and most troublesome quality. We try, Marcus said with a grin, as they walked toward the conference hall with a careful meter of space between them. Marcus reflected that maybe, just maybe, he'd learned something valuable about checking cultural protocols more thoroughly, though knowing his luck he'd probably end up accidentally engaged to someone else by next Tuesday. Behind them, Jenny was already drafting a new protocol. Emergency physical contact procedures and legal implications thereof. Just another day in the human diplomatic corps.